Hello friends, welcome back to Digitalk. In this session, I am going to cover how you can configure the high availability for the admin server in WebLogic server. Okay, so this is the part one where I am going to explain complete step-by-step action plan. Okay, and in the second part, I will show you the execution of that. Okay, so before go ahead for the execution, it is very important to understand what exactly we are doing. Okay, and what are the some basic concepts before the execution. Okay, so that everything should get clear to you when you are in the execution. So let us begin with that. But before that one, let me understand few concepts, okay? And then if you are new to WebLogic, okay, then Oracle WebLogic admin server is a singleton application. That means it cannot be deployed in active configuration. Okay, that means for each and every domain in the WebLogic server, we will have only one admin server. Okay, so that means it is a singleton service. Okay, because we have only one admin server. If that is get crashed, then you can't able to access the admin console and you can't do the certain kind of a configurations like deployment, or if you would like to do any kind of a configuration changes, you would like to create the data sources, you would like to update any kind of parameters, okay, that you can't do because your admin console is not available. Okay, so because admin console is an application which is get automatically deployed on your admin server when we set up and configure a domain. So if your admin server is down, that means your admin console will not be available, right? So if this node become unavailable, for example, if your admin server is down, okay, maybe you have a machine or a node where your admin server is machine running, and that machine or node get crash, okay, due to certain reasons, then you will take some time to recover your machine, or maybe you will have a certain kind of a downtime for your particular node or application or the machine where your admin server is running. So in that case, there are multiple other scenarios as well when you have a unavailability of your admin console, right? So now when we talk about the Fusion middleware, not specific to only plain WebLogic, okay? In Fusion middleware, you have a multiple other component as well that is get deployed on your WebLogic server, admin server, okay? Which we call it as Fusion middleware infrastructure, which is nothing but which is a WebLogic, but with some enhanced functionalities to support the middleware products. Okay, so one of the product that is called Enterprise Manager, Oracle Enterprise Manager, which is also called the EM console or also called the Fusion middleware console, which is also get deployed on your admin server. So that will also be not available. Okay, and apart from that, if you go to the IDM and some other products like OAM from the Oracle, then there are a lot of different consoles of the application. Web consoles is deployed on the admin server. So if your admin server is down, that means your all the consoles along with the admin server in middleware will not be available, right? So to avoid this kind of a scenario where you have a admin server of singleton service, and that is the limitation, you can say that you can have only one admin server in domain. So you have to enable the high availability, so that in case for any reasons if your admin server is not available, then you should have access of that with some certain kind of a configuration which is called the high availability. Right. So what exactly we do for that? For that, we when we configure the domain, so we assign a virtual IP to our admin server. Okay, so we'll discuss on that. What is a virtual IP? Okay, so that means virtual IP is not an actual physical IP. Okay, it is a virtual IP that can be available on any of the node. For example, if you have a 4 cluster node and one of the node is running the admin server, and if that admin server, when we configure the admin server, we assign a listen address, and generally in the listen address we assign the DNS or the IP address of that particular machine, right? Which is the physical IP of your that machine. Okay, so instead of that physical IP of that machine, what we do, we assign a virtual IP address. Okay, and this virtual IP address can be available on any of the node. If I'm saying you have a 4 node, then that particular virtual IP can be enabled on any of the node, so that if one of the machine get crashed, you can access the admin server from any of the other nodes, okay, with the help of that particular virtual IP. So in case of a failure, the admin server along with the virtual IP address can be migrated from one host to another. Okay, for example, if your admin server is running on node 1 and we have configured it with the virtual IP, and if that machine get crashed, okay, or maybe you are going to have a downtime for admin server, so what you can do, you can disable the virtual IP on the node 1. Okay, and if your machine get crashed, then it will get automatically get disabled. If you are doing certain kind of a maintenance, then you can disable the virtual IP on node 1, and then you can start this virtual IP on the node 2, and then you can start your admin server from node 2. Similarly, either you can go to node 2, node 3, or node 4, because this virtual IP can be enabled on any of the node, right? So before we get for the action plan or for the configuration, let me give you some basic concepts. Okay, what exactly virtual IP? Okay, so before the admin server can be configured to listen on a virtual address, one of the network interface card on the host running the admin server must be configured to listen on this virtual IP address. So this is a very basic requirement. So network interface card, which is called the NIC card. Okay, this is a very basic requirement of any of the system, which is a physical Ethernet, also, which is also called the Ethernet or Ethernet port, where we actually plug in our network cable in each and every PC or computers. That is a network interface card. And for each and every network interface card, we have an associated static IP, which is called the private IP. Okay, so this is the private IP. And along with that, if you have a network interface card where you have a static IP associated with your network interface card, okay, then you have the ability, then you can create the virtual IP addresses. That means you can create few more addresses that will be the virtual. So network interface card is a hardware component that allow a computer to connect to a network, such as a local area network or the internet. It acts as a bridge between the computer and the network, enabling data to be sent and received. So this is a very basic requirement of any of the computer. If you want to plug in any computer within any network, whether it is your local network, whether you would like to plug in with the internet. So to have a communication with the other devices in the network, you will have a network interface card where you plug in your network cable, and then it is available on the network for the communication with the other devices. Right. So now an IP address is assigned to a network interface card to identify the device on a network. This IP address allows the NIC to communicate with the devices and services of the network. So as I said, for each and every NIC card, we will have a associated IP address. Now, a virtual IP is an address that server as an alias for one or more physical IP. So once you have a network interface card which is associated with a physical IP, static IP, then with respect to that particular static IP, you can create multiple aliases. That means the multiple different IPs, which is called the virtual IPs, which you can start and stop anytime on that particular node or the machine. Okay, which is completely based on your physical IP. So virtual IP is an IP address that is not tied to a specific physical network interface card, but it used by multiple NICs or devices. So that means if I'm saying that you have a NIC on a machine, and based on that you can create the different aliases. That means different virtual IP address. That means for virtual IP you don't need a other network interface card, because it is automatically created when you already have a NIC card with the physical static IP. Okay, so this virtual IP is not tied to any physical network interface card, and this is a beauty because why it this virtual IP can be disabled or enabled on any of the node. Okay, as I said, you may have a virtual IP which you enabled on node 1. Okay, if that node get crash, or maybe you can disable that virtual IP on node 1, and then you can enable it on any of the node, because this virtual IP is not tied to any of your physical network interface cards, right? So now, how to look for the particular network interface card? This is very common, and you may have seen it multiple times if you run the command ifconfig, okay, which we basically you use to check the IP address of your machine, right? So if you're in the ifconfig, the first basic thing that you will see ETH0, Ethernet 0. Okay, so this is the basic, or you can say common name for the first Ethernet network interface or the NIC card that you have in your system. Okay, for example, if you're in a Linux, specifically on Linux, then you will see ETH0, which is the name of your Ethernet network interface. Okay, and then you can see the corresponding associated IP. Okay, so this ETH0 is represent your NIC card, which I have shown you in the previous slide here. Right, this is the NIC network interface card, which is associated with your computer or laptop or device, where we plug in our network machine cable. Right, for this Ethernet is represented by the ETH0. Okay, so naming convention is derived from the Ethernet ETH, because this is representing the Ethernet, so it is a short form of ETH followed by a number with 0 typically representing the first network interface card. So it could be possible that you will have a multiple interface card in a system. Okay, you may want a multiple static IPs, so you can have a multiple interface card. The first will start with the ETH0. Okay, so ETH0 interface is used to connect a computer to a network using a wired Ethernet cable. It is responsible for handling the all traffic that passes through the particular space interface. If a system has multiple Ethernet interfaces, then you will have a ETH0, ETH1, ETH2, and something like that. Right. So now, how you can enable or disable or create these kind of a virtual IPs. So what we have discussed so far is that we have to configure the admin server. This is the first requirement with the virtual IP, not the static IP, right? And virtual IP is just an alias of your physical IP. So that means we have to first create our virtual IP, and then we can start and stop it. That means we can enable, disable it anytime. Okay. And for that, let us suppose that we have a host one. Okay, with the IP that is showing on the screen 172.31.34.19, and host 2 with the IP address 172.31.34.20. These are two hosts, and these are two associated physical IPs, static IPs of the machines. Right. Now suppose that we have admin server, and that admin server we are going to configure with the virtual IP, which is the 172.31.34.21. So this 21 is not tied up with any of the network interface card. Instead, it is a virtual IP that we are going to create on the node 1. Okay, so if config, you can see the IP address of your machine, right? So the for the first machine we have a IP address of with .19 at the last. Okay, now we have to run a command, okay, to add this particular virtual IP, or you can say it is an alias for your existing physical IP. So the command is IP space addr, then add, and then you have to give the IP of your virtual IP of your machine, okay, which you wanted to configure. So we have given the 172.31.34.21. Along with that, we have given the /32. So the /32 is a side notification, okay, and /32 means only one IP, okay. So and then we have to give the dev, and then Ethernet 0, ETH 0. This is the interface card. Okay, so once you will run this command, okay, this is going to add a virtual IP in your machine, and the virtual IP with the address of 172.31.34.21, and that you can verify the configuration with the help of IP addr show device ETH0. Okay, and once you will run this command, then your virtual IP will also be get displayed on the output, as you can see on the screen, right? So that means you have a now virtual IP which is up and running and configured. And now if you were to persist this virtual IP across reboot, that means because this is a virtual IP, okay, if you are going to reboot your machine, okay, then this will get vanished, okay, until and unless you are going to enable it by default when your machine is booted up, right? So for that you have to do some short kind of a configuration so that whenever you start your machine, this virtual IP get started automatically. So for that you have to go to your etc and sysconfig and then network hyphen scripts directory. So here you can create a file with the name of if cfg hyphen eth0 colon 1. Okay, so there you may see a file with the name of if cfg hyphen eth0, which is the default for the physical IP. Okay, and because now we are going to create a one more alias for that, we are one more virtual IP. So for that, what we are doing, we are creating a file with the name of if cfg hyphen eth0 then colon 1. This is the name of the file where we are going to define this particular virtual IP configuration. The content of that file is device, and for device we are going to give the name eth0 colon 1, right? Because it is a virtual or IP or the alias for your eth0 card, right? Ethernet. So we have given the name as eth0 colon 1, and then IP address we will give the virtual IP that we are going to configure, net mask of your machine, and then on boot you have to select it as yes, so that whenever you are going to boot your machine, this IP should get started. Otherwise, what will happen that if you are not doing this configuration and if your machine get rebooted, this virtual IP will not get enabled. And because we have configured our admin server with this virtual IP, so you will not is able to start your admin server because your server will not able to find this particular listen address, right? Now restart the network interface surface. So without restarting the rebooting the system, if you would like to enable this, then you can run this command sudo systemctl restart and network. Okay. So now that means you have the virtual IP is ready. So if any time you would like to bring this down virtual IP, then you run the command if down space eth0 colon 1. This is the command to bring down this virtual IP. Similarly, if you would like to start this, then you can run the command if up eth0 colon 1. Okay, and this is the command to bring up the virtual IP that we are going to use, okay, when we are going to migrate our admin server on the other node, some other node, right? And if you would like to remove this virtual IP, and this is the command, okay, instead of add, you have to run use the del, okay, to remove the virtual IP. Okay, so now follow same on host 2 and then copy if cfg hyphen eth0 colon 1 to some different location so that network interface should not boot on restart. Okay, that means whatever the configuration that we have done on the machine 1, okay, that is what we have done. We have created a virtual IP here, right? Same virtual IP you have to create on the node 2, host 2. Why? Because we are going to migrate our admin server from host 1 to host 2. So that means this virtual IP should be available on host 2 as well. Okay. The only difference is that here we have configured the virtual IP and then we have started, because as of now our admin server is running on this machine, right? And once we'll go on the host 2 and we'll do the same configuration, what we will do, once we will create the file if cfg-eth0 colon 1, which is just we have created here, in same way we will create here. After creating this file, we will move this file some different location. Okay, we will not keep it inside the etc sysconfig network hyphen script and then uh, with the name of file. Okay, so that means we are not going to keep it inside the network hyphen script. Okay, so that this particular script or virtual IP should not get started on your host 2 as well, because it is already running on host 1. Okay, so this we are going to start manually only when we are going to migrate our admin server from host 1 to host 2. Okay, so nothing difference. Follow the same steps whatever you have followed here. Okay, and instead of bringing up the virtual IP on machine host 2, what we will do, we will copy this file to some different location. So I have copied in the slash root. You can copy it anywhere. Okay, but keep that path with you, because once we will bring up the this virtual IP on this host, we will copy this file again back to the network hyphen scripts to start this virtual IP. Right. So now once it is done, once this configuration is completed, what you can do, you can point your admin server listen address to this virtual IP, and after that try to access the admin console. Then you can able to access your admin console with the help of this particular virtual IP. Okay, so now what we have done, we have configured the virtual IP, and then we have configured our admin server to listen on this virtual IP on the host 1, and it is accessible. Right. Now we have what we have to do, we have to do some admin server node manager configuration. So now what we are going to do, because we are saying that if our admin server is down on node 1, we are going to migrate it onto machine 2, right? So that means certain kind of a configuration files need to be accessible between both machines. In my case, I have host 1 and host 2, and I am planning to migrate my admin server from host 1 to host 2. There are certain configuration files in your domain that should be accessible on both machines. So one strategy is that you can configure a shared drive, and then you can place all those configuration directories or files which I'm going to show you inside the shared directory. Otherwise, what you can do, I will tell you on that. What you can do for that. Okay, so first what we are going to do, we are going to create a separate node manager for the admin server. Okay, so that node manager will take care of start and restart of your admin server only. I'm not going to touch the node manager that we are going to use, that we are using for our managed servers. Okay, so now because when we configure the domain, that it automatically create a node manager, right, which we use to associate our managed servers. So now I'm saying that I am going to create one more node manager for our admin server. So for that, there are certain basic steps. Okay, you have to only create few files. Okay, and then with the help of that files, you can have a separate node manager up and running that you can point to your admin server. Okay, so for that, very simple. The first step is you can create a machine from your admin console. Okay, and now because our admin server is listening on this particular virtual IP, and the node manager that we are going to create is we are going to use for admin server. So that means this node manager should be assign the IP address of virtual IP, what we have configured, right? So create a machine from admin console and assign this particular virtual IP as a listen address to admin server. Now create a node manager directory as the subdirectory of the admin server. So now because we are going to create a separate node manager, and when we create a domain, so yeah, I'm sure you are aware about that. There is a folder called node manager is created inside the domain, right? Which is the default node manager home of the default node manager that is created for the domain. So now we are going to create a separate node manager for admin server. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a node manager directory, separate node manager directory for the admin server. And the location that I have selected is inside the domains. You have a folder called servers. Inside servers, we have a folder for each and every managed servers and admin server. So because I am going to create this node manager for my admin server, so what I am going to do, I will go inside the admin server, my admin server, and then there I will create a folder with the name of node manager. Okay, so this is my node manager home for my admin server, right? So once it is created, then you can create two configuration files there. The first is node manager.domain, and this node manager.domain file will contain the path of the domain that this particular node manager is going to look up for, right? So you can create a node manager.domain file, and the content will be my domain equal to and the location of your domain, right? And second file you can create node manager.properties. So these two files you can copy from the default node manager home, right, which is here inside the domain. So inside your domain, you can go to node manager folder. From there, you can copy the node manager.domain and node manager.property files, where inside the node manager, new node manager folder, which we have created inside the admin server. Okay, so I'm simply creating a separate node manager home for the my admin server node manager, and I'm copying the existing files to that location. And after that, what I'm changing inside the node manager.properties file, I am changing the domain file. Okay, the first is the domain file, which file it is going to point. Okay, so this is the node manager.domain file, which I have specified here, right? Because this file, this node manager.domain file, I have created inside my admin server and node manager folder. So this complete location I have to replace, right? Apart from that, we have to change the listen address to the virtual address, virtual IP. And then listen address you can change, right? Because by default you already have a node manager is running on the default port 5556, and now because we are creating a node manager for my admin server, so it should be running on some different port. So these three parameters we have to change in the node manager.properties file, right? So that means we have created a node manager home for our admin server. Then we have copied the two files and we have modified the files according to the admin server configurations, right? And after that, you can change to domain directory bin and create the start script to the new node manager. So now we have configured the node manager home. We have configured the files. Now we need a file, right, to start our this particular node manager. So what you can do, you can go to your domain and build folder, and then you can copy the your start node manager.sh file and give it a name, start node manager admin.sh, right? Because we are going to start our node manager with for the admin server with the help of this script. And only thing that you need to change in the start node manager admin.sh file is node manager home, and this is the home which we have configured here for our admin server, right? Because this is the location where we have configured our admin server node manager files. So in this script, you only need to refer or change the node manager home. That's it. Okay, so now your script is running, and now you can initiate the script start node manager admin.sh, and it will start a separate node manager which we are going to use for the admin server, right? So let me recap you what we have done so far. It's very straightforward. We have created a new node manager directory inside the admin server folder. Inside that, we have copied the node manager.domain and node manager.properties file from the existing node manager home. Then we have modified the three parameters: virtual IP, the port of our node manager, and the domain file location, right? And then we have copied the startup script of node manager and renamed it for the admin server. And then we have changed the new node manager home in that file, right? And then we have started the node manager, right? So after you have started the node manager, what you can do, you can stop your admin server, and then you can start your admin server with the help of this particular node manager. So you can easily now control your admin server with the help of this particular node manager. Okay, and to start the node manager with the help of this particular command, you can use the WLST. So for that, you can connect to your WLST and run the command nm connect. With the help of nm connect, you can connect to this new node manager which we have configured for the admin server. And now because it is running on the virtual IP and for the 5557 port, so you can give the same port in the command, and then you can initiate the nm start command and it will start your admin server, right? Now you have to go for the shared storage configuration. So far what we have done, we have configured the virtual IP on both hosts, and then we have configured uh, the admin server node manager, right? Now we have to have some kind of a configurations, or you can say the configuration files or directories on the shared location, so that it should be accessible from all the hosts. So the three important configuration files or the directories that should have on the shared storage, okay, which will be your bin folder inside your domain, config folder inside your domain, and then your admin server, which contain the information or the runtime information of your admin server. So these are the important directories that you should have on the shared location, so that it can be accessible from the any host. Because if your admin server is down on node 1, which you are going to start from host 2, so these directories should be accessible from the node 2 as well, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to take all these three directories, okay, and then we are going to make it on the shared drive, so that it should be accessible for host 1 and host 2. The steps are very simple. You can shut down your complete domain, go to your host 1, and then create a folder with the name of same domain inside your shared location. So in my case, the shared location is /weblogic_nfs. This is the mount point. Inside that, I have created a directory my domain with which is the same name as of my domain, right? And after that, what I am on host 1 right now, right? So because I have created this my domain folder on the shared location, so once it is created on the host 1, this should be accessible from the host 2 as well, right? So after that, what I have done, I have moved my bin config folder, okay, and after that my admin server folder inside this particular location, because what I said, all these need to be in the shared drive so that it should be accessible from both the hosts, right? And after that, I have again went into my domain directory, which is my domain, and then I have created the soft link for all this, right? Because whenever I'm going to start my servers from any of the hosts, it looks for the local file system, right? Local domain. So that means all these physical directories now are on the shared drive, right? And now in the domain location, actual domain location, what I have, only I have the soft link of this location. So that means now I have the directories, which is the soft link on my local file system as well. Okay, then whenever I am going to run any of the command from this soft link, it will refer to the files. Those are there in the shared location. Okay, so for all three, I have created the soft links. Okay, now same exercise you have to do it on the host 2 as well. Okay, you can delete your bin and config folder. Okay, and then you can create the soft link of the bin and config folder from the same location, which is on your NFS shared mount point. Okay, and after that, what you have to do, you have to create a admin server directory soft link, which you can see on the screen as well. Right? Okay. So now both host domain pointing to same bin config and admin folder. Right. So that means now we have the configured our configuration files as well, where we have the important configuration files and directories are on the common location. So that whenever you are going to start your admin server from host 2, so it will look for all these directories and it will be accessible to the admin server from the second host as well. Okay, so now you can, on host 1, you can start your both of your node managers. The first one is the default one, which you already have your domain. Second is your node manager, which we have configured for the admin server. And then you can start your admin server, okay, by pointing to your virtual IP. Then start your manage server. Now go to host 2, start your node manager, and then you can start your manage server 2 as well. Now, how you can test? So, testing in case of failure of host 1, the manage server, manage server 2 on the host 2 will still be running, and an application will remain online. So that means if your host 1 is get crashed, suppose that, okay, so you have a manage server on machine 2. So that means your application will not get impacted, okay, but your admin server will not be able accessible because it was on the host 1, which is crashed now, right? So this scenario we are going to test. So what we can do, on host 2, enable the virtual IP, okay, because initially when I showed to you, I said to you that copy the if config eth:1 in a different location, which we have placed inside the root folder. So now copy this file again back to the network scripts, because we are going to up this virtual IP on this machine, okay, and then you can run the if config, and then you can start the node manager admin machine on host 2. So what you can do, you can go to your bin location and then start your node manager on this machine, which will be going to use for your admin server, okay, and then you can start your admin server on host 2. Similarly, go to your run the WLST, you can connect to your node manager and you can run the nm start command, and now you can able to access the application. Okay, so now let me explain you what we have done here. In host 2, what we have done to test the scenario, we have copied the if config -eth0:1 file to the network -script directory, okay, on the host 2. Then we ran the command if up and the name of the file, right? So if up, if config, that means this will bring up that particular virtual IP on this machine, right? Which you can validate with the if config command as well. After that, we have started the node manager, which we have configured for the admin server. And then we have started our admin server with the help of our WSD. So now, because your admin server, which is not running on machine 1, which got crashed, and now it was configured for the virtual IP, and now this virtual IP is up and running on host 2, and along with that, we have the bin config directory and the admin server directory on the shared drive, which will be accessible from the host 2 as well, so that your admin server can easily be started from host, right? So this is the way how you can configure the high availability for your admin server. In the second session, I am going to show you the execution.